Tanisha Green, a combat pilot from Baltimore, Maryland, sat quietly in the operations center, her fingers lightly resting on the drone controls. The soft whir of computers and the quiet hum of the servers were the only sounds in the room. Her combat drone, thousands of miles away, floated effortlessly above the desert. Tanisha's battlefield wasn't made of the sky, but of high-definition screens and data feeds. Yet, even here, the weight of the mission was palpable. She had flown dozens of these missions, but each one felt as important as the last. The task today was clear: locate and track a convoy believed to be carrying weapons toward coalition forces. The briefing had been thorough. Intel suggested the convoy might be preparing for an ambush, but there were still questions about the true nature of their movements. Tanisha leaned in closer to her screen, scanning the terrain through the drone's camera. She could see a small village up ahead, a cluster of mud brick houses nestled in the desert. This wasn't just a military zone. People lived here, civilians going about their daily lives, unaware of the dangers that lurked nearby. That thought stayed with Tanisha, keeping her grounded. Her job wasn't just to neutralize threats, but to protect innocent lives. "Target convoy in sight," came the voice from the tactical officer next to her. The camera zoomed in, revealing a line of trucks making their way down a narrow road. From this height, they were nothing more than small dots against the vast expanse of sand. But Tanisha knew better. She switched her feed to infrared, watching the heat signatures pop up on her screen. There were people in those trucks, but were they combatants or civilians? Tanisha didn't rush. She never did. One of her greatest strengths as a pilot was her patience. She knew the importance of making the right call, of verifying targets before taking any action. The drone hovered silently above the convoy, tracking their every move. "Requesting permission to engage," said the tactical officer, his voice calm but firm. Tanisha hesitated. Something didn't sit right. The convoy wasn't behaving like a military unit. There was no evidence of heavy weapons or aggression. She switched to the visual feed, zooming in further. That's when she saw it. A group of children running alongside one of the trucks, laughing and waving to someone in the convoy. "Hold engagement," Tanisha ordered. Her team exchanged glances but trusted her judgment. She wasn't just looking for threats, she was looking for the truth. Tanisha guided the drone to circle the area, watching as the trucks slowed down near the village. More civilians appeared, women carrying water jugs, men working on broken-down vehicles. It became clear that this wasn't an armed convoy headed for an attack. These were local villagers, moving supplies, possibly even evacuating due to the rising tensions in the region. "Tanisha, are we sure about this?" asked her mission commander. "Something's not right. I don't see any weapons. These might just be civilians," she replied. The tension in the room was thick. They had all seen the reports, the satellite images that showed potential enemy activity in the area. But those reports didn't tell the full story. "I'm requesting a closer look," Tanisha said, guiding the drone to drop its altitude slightly. Her eyes stayed locked on the screen as the drone's camera zoomed in on the trucks. Still no weapons. Instead, she spotted farming equipment, crates of food, and a few goats tied to the back of one of the vehicles. This wasn't an attack force. It was a group of villagers fleeing to safety. "Abort engagement," came the final order from her commander. Tanisha breathed a quiet sigh of relief. She had made the right call. The lives of dozens of innocent people had been spared because she had taken the time to investigate rather than assume. The drone continued to hover above the village, now more a guardian than a hunter. Tanisha watched as the convoy entered the village safely, unloading supplies and helping families gather their belongings. Before handing control of the drone over to the next shift, Tanisha marked the location on her map for a resupply team. Perhaps the coalition could bring aid to this village, helping these civilians before the conflict got any closer. As her shift came to an end, Tanisha removed her headset and stood up from her seat. The room, which had been thick with tension just moments before, was now calm. She had kept her fellow soldiers safe, but more importantly, she had protected the lives of people who might never know her name. Stepping out into the warm Nevada sun, Tanisha reflected on the day's mission. It wasn't always about pulling the trigger. Sometimes the most important part of being a combat pilot was knowing when not to engage. Thousands of miles away from the battlefield, she had made a decision that saved lives. Tomorrow, she would return to the operations center, ready to fly again. But for now, she was content knowing she had done her part to protect the innocent. Tanisha Green was proud of her work, not just as a combat pilot, but as someone who had the power to see beyond the enemy and recognize the humanity on the other side.